Hello, and welcome to Legalbytes. If you're new here, my name is Alyte. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we explain the law one bite at a time. We don't give legal advice, but we do talk about how the law works and try to look into our crystal ball to see how things might turn out. If you're enjoying this on YouTube, we'd love it if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with friends, all the great YouTube-y stuff. And if you want to listen while out and about, we're now offering our live streams in podcast form where you can leave a rating and review. Links are in the description below, as well as to our clips channel where you can find some of the best clips taken from our live streams. Otherwise, if you want to catch me elsewhere, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so on Locals, Patreon, or by becoming a YouTube member, or by buying some really awesome legal.
Well, hello, folks. It appears that I have taken over Alita's channel. I'm very sorry for that. I'm not as good as her, but it does appear that the intro video, well, let's put the legal terminology on it, crapped out. And so I suspect she's having a little bit of internet difficulty. I know she was having some of that difficulty before we started today. So you are stuck with me for at least a few minutes as she gets back online.
Rick, the MVP.
It's not the first time I've done it over here, I have to tell you.
I know. I'm so sorry.
No,
My internet definitely just went out, as happens from time to time. But thank you, Rick, for holding down the fort.
Nothing like being live on the internet and just seeing your face and be like, okay, well, we were going to launch into a discussion of horror movies in October, so it was okay. I had topics ready to go.
Oh man. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. I'm so thankful to have you all here. I'm so thankful for our guest today, Rick Hogue over at Hogue Law. I'm sure you guys know him because he's a regular feature on this channel by now. One of my very good friends in LawTube as and great friend outside of LawTube, I should say. So I'm really happy. Lumber, thanks for the super chat. This is Hogue's channel now, friends. What's up? Oh, Mr. Byte says he wants a baseball. Okay, I should tell him that I should tell him about the store. If anybody wants a baseball cap, Rick is actually selling some really great baseball caps for Hogue Law and for Lawyers and Dragons. And I will get a link in the description as soon as I.
I thought you were talking to God for a second there. Yeah, no,
no,
just Mr. Bytes.
Just Mr. Bytes. he came in and looked all serious. And I thought maybe something was wrong, and he said, "I want that hat."
We can do that.
So, yeah. So anyway, with that fun snafu to begin the live stream, we're having a good time, having a good Thursday. I hope that you guys are having a great week so far, headed towards the weekend. How are you doing, Rick?
I'm doing great. You know, it's Thursday. We did hangouts this morning. I did have a long conversation about horror movies. I love October. I love scary movies. We do them all throughout Hogue House, throughout the whole month. And so I'm feeling good. It's exciting to be here. I haven't been on this show in a couple of weeks, at least, maybe a month.
Yeah, so, it's been some time.
Yeah. So no, I'm looking forward to this. There's half these topics I'm going to be educated just like the chat is. So you're going to have to talk to me about what's going on.
Yeah.
And then the other half I know a little something about. So we'll have some fun.
Yeah, this will be great. So we've got Cardi B. She is garnishing the wages of Tasha K for a defamation case in which Cardi B won a massive judgment of $4 million against her. And Tasha K is proving to be the person that pays that kind of a judgment, or maybe doesn't pay because she's trying to get out of it. But it seems that she has not learned a single lesson from the case, which is just like it as a litigator or former litigator, it baffles me, right? Because it's like the stress of litigation. No one wants to go through that. So I don't see how someone can go through that whole process and just be like, nope, I am 100% in the right. And like, sorry, person, like, I don't care about anything that I did wrong against you. Anyway, we'll get into the details. Then, speaking of people that are continuing to say things and do things publicly, we've got Alec Baldwin. There's the prosecutor in New Mexico made some comments about some potential charges coming out of New Mexico. 4 people possibly requesting some big money for the prosecution, saying that they're going to be going against some very expensive lawyers. So we'll go into some of the reporting on that. Rick, I know that one you talked about on your channel.
Yeah, that one's super interesting. And yeah, this is sounding like an episode of clients you don't want to have. They like to talk to the media. That doesn't always help.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, yeah, that could definitely be the theme of today, because I also would not want to be a criminal defense attorney on the Dahmer case. So if you guys are not familiar with Jeffrey Dahmer, he is kind of an infamously known person who he was convicted of murder, and he was a serial killer, and he would not just murder, but then make a meal, so to speak, out of his victims. So horrible, gruesome case. Now there's a Netflix show that has come out about it. Of course, there's a lot of criticism that's come out about the show as well, for particularly coming from the victims' families. So we'll talk a little bit about that, but mostly what I wanted to do was to go through actually the direct examination of one of the key witnesses in the case, because that case was actually fully they had cameras in the courtroom in 1992 when they litigated that case. So there's about like a 30-minute long direct examination. It was very skillfully done in my opinion. So I wanted to kind of go through that and just sort of like go through almost like the art of storytelling through a direct examination. But when I say art, it makes it sound like I'm saying this is such a beautiful thing. It's not exactly beautiful because it's a gruesome kind of story. Although one of the reasons why I chose this witness is because, yeah, it's kind of, some of the stuff he talks about is kind of gross, like the smells in the room and that kind of thing. But he's, it's not as gruesome as the other actual instances of murder. So it's, for TV wise, it's a little bit more tame coming from that case. So anyway, with that, let's get started. But first, Lawn Lumber, thanks again for another super chat. Says, Mr. Bites saw Hogue and I twinning and got jealous. True. I mean, he also loves a good baseball cap.
Well, we got more colors now. So I had that gray baseball cap for the first 4 years of the show. Now we have more.
Nice.
It's all good.
Nice.
I will get Mr. Bites one.
We'll definitely, we will happily buy one from your store.
You don't have to buy one, for Pete's sake.
Of course we do. We've got to support you.
All right. Well, I have no idea what you've got in store for me on direct testimony for the Dahmer case, so I'm looking forward to that. That'll be interesting. We'll go from there. Yeah.
All right, sounds good. So let's get started with, and I've got to go back to sharing my screen again because I lost everything when I got kicked out. All righty, here we go. We'll start with this one. This one will be kind of a quick thing, because we're talking about the defamation case that Cardi B filed against Tasha K, who is a YouTube blogger, basically kind of like basically a big drama channel. She talks a lot about like rappers, R&B artists, that kind of stuff. And she talked a lot about Cardi B. So if you've been following this channel closely for, the past year or so, you probably are very familiar with this case. She basically alleged that she did drugs, she was a prostitute, she had STDs, like pretty much all the things that could trigger defamation per se, because they're just immediately
per se list. Yeah, just go right down it.
Yeah, just checked all the boxes. And so, and the thing is, I remember when first looking at it and being like, well, this is a, statements about a public figure. And so, I don't know how likely it's going to be that she's going to actually win against Tasha K on this, except for then Tasha K, then when she was on the stand, admitted basically to recklessness for actual malice. She said, yeah, I knew that the stuff that I was saying was probably not true, and I really didn't care. And that's my business model. And I do that for money. And this is basically like, I have no remorse for anything. And so, yeah, it was definitely one of those things where it was very clear, very clear. So that's how she ended up getting a $4 million judgment against her. Most of that was actually punitive damages. So now it appears that after Tasha K tried to appeal the verdict, supposedly unsuccessfully, she then decided to move to Africa to try.
Yeah, it's a headline I saw.
Okay, yeah, she moved to Africa. That is undisputed. Whether she was doing it specifically to evade the payment of the judgment is likely. I don't know if it's 100% confirmed. So, but anyhow, so this was, this is one of the reasons why we think that she's evading is because she basically is kind of taunting Cardi B on social media with a tag.
Can you help me out here visually? Which one's which? I don't know these people. I apologize.
Sorry. So this is Cardi B on the left, and this is Tasha K on the right in the green.
All right, thank you. I know, naive.
No, this is great. This is great. Because other people watching might not know. So she's got Unwind with Tasha K. That's her YouTube channel. And so she's got this tag in Uganda, Africa. And then she says, well, YouTube video up in 5 minutes. Since your fave keeps begging for these little coins, ask her how she wants the 4 million in Guinea francs or Ugandan shillings. And I can't remember if this was actually before or after Cardi B filed to actually garnish Tasha K's wages. So trying to get access to her bank accounts, which, I mean, she can move to Africa, but if her bank accounts are still with American banks, she can still garnish those accounts. I mean,
YouTube's an American company, right? I mean, they've got the money going out from YouTube. I would imagine there's ways to get to that as well. I don't this ain't my ballpark on this kind of stuff, but in general, if you've got some connection to the jurisdiction that you're in, you can go and find ways to get the money there.
True. So this is just such an interesting tidbit about the fact that this just continues to play out in the media, even though the case happened months and months ago. I mean, this case was before the Depp trial, even that this had already wrapped up. So, and yet Cardi B is going after her, and the thing is, Cardi B doesn't need that money, right? I mean, arguably, she probably doesn't need $4 million from her, but it seems that from the statements that I have seen by Cardi B on this issue, it seems like her point is, no, I'm trying to make a point. I won, and I need you to know that I won.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that the legal system is designed to give that redress, right? The court case determined that she was hurt for $4 million. She's owed $4 million. Yeah. So I would do the same thing regardless of what my bank account looked like.
Yep, exactly.
It's wild to me. And look, I'm on YouTube, right? But it's wild to me to see people go out there with this kind of mentality, to go out there in court and say, I didn't care, to then have the judgment placed against them and then basically be saying the same thing. I don't care. Come after me. Right. And we're seeing some of that in my neck of the woods, right? Because there are concerns that if the Delaware Court of Chancery holds against Elon Musk, that they don't have great tools to actually make him spend $48 billion. And so we're seeing this kind of in a number of these stories that touch all of our channels and all of our conversations about, well, the court doesn't have an army. So what exactly does happen when people are just like, nah, bro? And that's becoming more and more prevalent. And I suspect it will again if Elon Musk is ruled against. So who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, that's already kind of common generally when it comes to collecting judgments in litigation in general. I mean, it's I think good logic. Joe he said that he's had a lot of experience with dealing with those kinds of issues with a lot of his cases in the past. And you would be shocked to hear how many of those cases actually go to judgments and the judgment never actually gets paid to the other side.
Yeah, or some small portion, definitely.
Pennies
and sometimes you see
dollar.
people to make a point, right? Like I have no idea what Tasha K. I'm sorry, I'm getting my letters wrong. What her actual like even capability of paying $4 million is, right? You put in a $4 million judgment against Hogue Law. We're going to talk about how to make $4 million appear for you, right? Like that's part of the conversation. So I try not to make those mistakes. But it could be similar for her. And then, garnishment of wages, there are caps on that. You have to allow people to live. There are things like that. It's not great for anybody. And it's probably going to be nickels on the dollar when you get done with everything. So it's just remarkable to me, as a Law and Order guy. Nah. I moved to Africa. Come at me, bro.
Okay. Yeah, agreed. And I will say, I mean, she's a big channel. She's like, last I checked, she had somewhere around 1 million subscribers. So she's not exactly a small channel. I would imagine that she's making decent money through the channel. But you're absolutely right. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that we can really tell what sort of finances that she has, like what the financial picture actually is and how quickly she can make $4 million appear. But I think that from Cardi's perspective, it might be more about making her squirm.
Well, and again, I think it's owed. I mean, I think that's just looking at the story like that. That's where my righteousness lies. It's like, go get your judgment, even though you're not going to get your judgment. I mean, you're just doing various things to go try to make it obvious. And drama channels, man. I didn't know this existed until like a year ago. I didn't.
Same. It wasn't until I started a YouTube channel myself that I learned about drama channels and a lot of the drama that ends up following drama channels themselves.
It's quite the business model. So no, I remember that judgment coming in and being like, wow, that's a lot. But it's a shame.
I
don't know. You'll have to update us again because I'm sure we'll get some more info on this as we go along.
We'll see. Let me get a super chat real quick. Don Lionheart says, good morning from rainy, windy, hurricaney Orlando. No power since 3 a.m., but no damage to my general area. Hope other viewers are staying safe. Yes, I meant to mention that when my technology snafu happened. For all the folks that are in the southeastern United States, please be safe. I hope that you are hunkered down wherever, especially if you're in the path of the hurricane. Don, thank you so much for the super chat. Very kind of you, very generous. Stay safe. No power since 3 a.m. How are you watching YouTube?
It's a charged phone. Don's got 6 battery packs ready to go. Rotates the phone in just so that he can super chat to you, Alyte.
I appreciate that you are using your battery life to watch us.
Hey, I have family in Florida. Sometimes they tell me they get a big storm and it's super boring. So maybe we're adding a little bit of entertainment to
fair
Don's
point.
life. Stay safe. It's my family's on the east side and they've been okay, but everybody on the west side there, please be careful.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let's talk about Baldwin. Baldwin.
Do we have a Baldwin in mind? Stephen Baldwin? Any Baldwin.
The one who keeps showing up in the headlines. Okay. We've got Alec Baldwin. Of course, of course. Now, this is one that you talked about, on your channel earlier this week. But here's an article from the Daily Mail titled "Alec Baldwin may be facing charges for arrest shooting. Santa Fe prosecutor says an actor is a possible defendant as he hands over his cell phone to be looked at as evidence." So essentially, what
Call
we
them out
have here.
specifically.
What's that?
Call them out
yeah.
specifically. Like they don't. It's not just like an actor or anything like that where you could posit that it's Alec Baldwin. The name Alec Baldwin is used. That's not a great sign if you are Alec Baldwin. If you are watching, that's not legal advice, Alec, but it's not a great sign.
I mean, if you were to give him legal advice, do you think he would take it?
No, that's the thing, right? The reason that I covered this at all, which isn't technically, technology or the things that I usually talk about on my channel, is that he gives that interview like seemingly right after it happened. I'm sure it's a few weeks or something like that, but it's really in the immediate aftermath. And I think all of us, we were doing the trial at the time. I think all of us were like, this is insane. Why in the world would you give an hour-long interview where you're doing things like making finger gun motions and like talking about how you're doing this? And so I did a video because like, this is crazy. This is like, you made their case for them on television if they feel like pursuing it, right? Like that was always the question. Do you really want to bring an action against this Hollywood performer? Because the laws in New Mexico would seem to suggest that you've got one. It's at best, it's negligent kind of usage of a firearm, which leads into unintentional homicide in their statutes. And it's like, if you want to make that case, it seems like you've got it from that interview. You could just play the interview. But did they want to do that? I'm still not sure that they do, but when you go and ask for $600,000, you're ramping things up.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I went through did I have you on for that? I had a few people on to go through the interview with George Stephanopoulos and to kind of react as he went through it.
I don't think I reacted with you. I did my virtual legality on it.
Okay.
I don't think I reacted like live or on a stream.
Okay. But I just remember it's same thing, just all the same observations, just being like, first of all, like who thought this was a good idea? Alec Baldwin. Did anyone else around him think it was a the idea?
It's got to be against the advice of counsel. It's got to be.
It had to be because I mean the part that really got me the most was when he literally went through each step with the gun, talking about how he pulled the hammer back, he let the hammer go, he pointed it at her, he let it go, and then the gun went off. Everything except for pulling the trigger. Yeah,
he says he didn't pull the trigger. I mean, I think some of our colleagues have discussions of that. I think Ian's got a really good video on that, for instance. But regardless, I mean, part of the stuff that really annoyed me in that interview is how throughout it, he's trying to blame people like lightly. And so that, she had
the victim.
Yeah, she had me aim at her. I was like, I mean, okay, bro, that's the way to go. If that's what you want to do. I mean, it's very difficult for her to disclaim this. So no, I think that was irritating from a personality standpoint because it had a very above the law kind of feel to it. That's separate from the actual elements of the case, but I think he stated them all like specifically. So I don't know. I mean, the other part is, I put this in my video. If you want to be cynical about it, you could say this is a DA that knows that their name is going to be known if they bring this case. I mean, like that is a part of the calculation that we have to take into account as well, right? This is a famous kind of thing that will happen. And if it's a televised case, I suspect it will be one that we would talk about. So it's one of those where you do get the names known, and DAs are political animals in general. That doesn't mean that I don't think that the elements are there, but there is a question of whether or not it's useful for $600,000 plus of resources for New Mexico. I don't know. I can't speak to that.
Right. I mean, I would imagine too that part of the political calculus also is the fact that New Mexico, I think, is quite a magnet for a lot of movie sets, isn't it? I mean, they've
got to have a lot. What I usually say is they got to have some good grants. Right. You see Georgia, you see New Mexico. New Mexico did like all the Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul stuff. I know that. So I think they have kind of a movie package for grants and tax relief and things like that. And usually that means you get some You get some Hollywood folks in there. Michigan did that for like 3 years. We had a Scream filmed here. I got to meet I can't even remember his name now. Michael Cera. They filmed a car crash that crashed into our, like, right next to our building. So yeah, that didn't work out. Michigan, turns out, didn't make any money on that. Government hates that. So they got rid of that law. But yeah, I think New Mexico's one. I think Georgia's one. So I think that they are interested in that. So the question is like, do you want to signal to people that this is unacceptable? Or, like, I don't think anybody realistically thinks Alec Baldwin wanted to murder her. So it's like, what then do you do with the power of the elements of the case and the crime? Do you think it's a useful bit of your resources? He's going to get slammed on civil liability. Do you need to add criminal liability? And I think reasonable minds can differ on whether or not it's important to say, this is very, very bad. Be careful with your guns. We're going to put Alec Baldwin in jail, or not. And that's right. Really what prosecutorial discretion is about. It's like, I could go either way on that, really.
Yeah. So let me pull a little bit of the article up here.
Yeah. I hate the formatting of the Daily Mail. This is important commentary.
Yeah, it really is. Let's see if I can kind of crop out some of the other stuff here. Okay, so in a letter to the state's financial board asking for funding to prosecute the high-profile case, Santa Fe District Attorney, okay, sorry, I guess it's a typo. Mary Carmack Altweiss said she was ready to file charges against 4 people. I mean, yeah, right here, she's already got her name in the headlines, right?
Yeah. No, I learned how to try to pronounce Altweiss earlier this week because I was like, I got to the first time, I was like, yeah, all right, we're going to work it out. Certainly, after you hear it said a number of times, if they do go to trial, then we'll all know it.
Yeah. Yes. She stopped short of confirming the charges she planned to bring, but said was certainly looking all the homicide statutes and any gun statutes under New Mexico criminal code.
The editing on the Daily Mail here with the double district attorney, and I'm sure that was not what the letter said. It's all right, Daily Mail, keep it up. We're all human beings.
Of course. Sometimes you just got to get something out, right? One of the possible defendants is well-known movie actor Alec Baldwin, she wrote. Yep, there he is by name.
Mentioned, I think it's 4, and then she references Alec Baldwin specifically.
Mm-hmm. Carmack Altweiss asked for $635,000 to prosecute the case, saying she needed the money to go up against well-paid attorneys.
I don't know if they're going to cover it, but the letter actually also talks about a public relations specialist and things like that for that money. Yeah,
that's not in this article, if I remember from reading this earlier. The state agreed to award her office $317,000, so almost half that.
It also says you can ask for more as it's needed.
Yeah. To appoint a special prosecutor to take the case forward. The request was quietly submitted on August 30th and was recently approved. After it was filed, Baldwin, who welcomed his 7th child with wife Hilaria last week, listed his Hamptons home for sale.
That's part of the story too.
That's a big point right there, that he is preparing to spend some money. He's got to liquidate some funds. Yep, he's got to have cash ready. He has always maintained that he did not pull the trigger and that the blame lies with the stunt handlers and prop managers who should have ensured the gun was cold, empty of live bullets. And he also blamed Halyna Hutchins herself, but that's fine. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger and know, he said in an interview about the shooting. He lays the blame with the armorer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, who he says was in charge of ensuring the safety of the props. The gun should have only contained blank rounds. Gutierrez-Reed has always denied culpability, despite also being blamed by Hutchins' family for the tragedy. She was named as a defendant in a wrongful death lawsuit launched by Hutchins' widower. ABC News on Monday said that one of the final pieces of evidence that prosecutors had been waiting for was Baldwin's cell phone. The DA wrote that one of the final pieces of evidence her office had been waiting for. Oh, okay. Again, why am I? I'm Ron Burgundy.
Your fault, Alyte.
Wait a minute. That sounds familiar.
It does. Sometimes you got to hit the word count, right? You got to submit it to your teacher. You copy a sentence. Yeah.
I've always been like an over word count person. Like, I always needed to truncate my papers.
It's only 5,000 words, Alyte. Got to break it down.
The actor has not commented on the DA's recent remarks. His attorney did not immediately respond to Daily Mail's inquiries. In addition to listing their Hamptons home, Baldwin and his wife sold a property in upstate New York earlier this year for $530,000. They still own their $16 million Manhattan penthouse and
Sure.
$1.75 million farm in Vermont. So he's not exactly going to the poorhouse. He's just liquidating some funds.
But get
So,
rid of
and
your
then
Hamptons
also,
house, man. I mean, you're just kicked out all the cool clubs.
I guess so. I guess, yeah. I mean, so this is the home for $29 million.
That really doesn't look like 29 million. Hamptons is expensive, folks.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big home, but in most parts of the country, that's a fraction of that cost.
Yeah, I would have said 1 or 2 here in Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. Look at that. It's got like a nice gazebo with a pool. All right. So anyway, that's that article. I mean, the fact that he is liquidating that much in funds, I think is very telling.
Yeah, and there's another Daily Mail article, maybe a day or two later, that talks about the fact they get like a bunch of lawyers in there to be like, he could be hiding it. He could be trying to put it in places where they can't find it. And there's another lawyer that's like, I mean, liquid assets are just better than non-liquid assets when you have major litigation. So there's like, they have a fight about it. And I think we can give benefit of the doubt. You know, this is coming up. You're going to want to pay some really good lawyers. You're going to need cash. They don't take, as we've seen in social media, we don't take things in trade usually as attorneys. So you can't just give like the greenhouse at your Hamptons home to the lawyer. You have to liquidate and get some cash. So I think you can give benefit of the doubt there, but I do think it indicates he thinks he's getting charged. And I think he is too. I think it's a very specific step. If you put a person's name in that financing request, you have to know it's going to leak. And so that's a strong signal. I also think as the point of contact closest to the killing, he's the most obvious person. That doesn't mean he's the only person, by the way. Somebody's responsible for bullets in the gun. I mean, like, there are more people that are probably at issue here. The other thing I mentioned is that Alec Baldwin's also a producer. So if they're going to go the route of unsafe set, he has actually hit both directions, right? The one that aimed the gun and the one that's, or at least one of the people that's responsible for not killing people while you make a movie.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I think there's a number of ways to come after him. I thought there were a number of ways back when it happened. And I think they might do it. So, yeah.
Because let's not forget that there are also the allegations that have sort of cropped up through this whole controversy by Hannah Gutierrez Reed, that she says, look, the way that this was set up from the beginning was unsafe. There was no way that I could have possibly properly done my job. And it's something like this was inevitable because of the problems that were on set. There wasn't enough funding for everything. You had too many employees that were wearing too many hats. So, her as an example, like, she's like, I had too many job responsibilities that they hired me for multiple roles and paid me much less for it. And then they were trying to rush production. So it was just cutting corners and cutting corners and cutting corners. That's sort of like a perfect storm is sort of I think the phrase that they used for it. And so, yeah, the fact that he's a producer and he's got so much visible exposure that he's put himself out there already at this point with the interviews that he's done, it really makes him a prime target. This, of course, comes after the FBI came back with their report on the gun, on the firearm itself, saying that they did some tests with it and they concluded that their opinion was that the gun could not have fired without the trigger being pulled. That was their conclusion. Now, I did see other reporting elsewhere that Baldwin's attorney really disputes the veracity of that report, saying that they were only able to fire the gun once because of the conditions of the gun, and that it had, I think that they said that it had gone off on its own at one point. I can't remember, but basically, like, I would anticipate that Baldwin's defense would be looking to the gun itself and the report on the gun and saying that, like, that report is junk science. You cannot possibly rely on that to convict him.
That's what the lawyers should be doing, right? Is calling into question the various aspects of that testing. I'm not sure it matters. because I think aiming a capable gun, whether or not you think it has blanks, at somebody is probably negligent control of a firearm under New Mexico law, and that's a misdemeanor ordinarily, doing stupid stuff with guns. But if it results in a death, it would seem to have a direct pathway to unlawful killing under their what amounts to manslaughter statutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know that the trigger actually needs to be pulled to make that case, which is obviously a problem for Alec Baldwin.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that this is if I'm Alec Baldwin, I'm right there with him, selling all those houses, lining up the best attorneys you can find, and hopefully actually listening to those attorneys when they.
At some point, you got to, right? You think you got to. You're clearly not listening to your PR attorneys and everything else. I mean, this is the kind of thing, because I think it is easy enough under the statute to see the direct through line, that I think you've got a possibility of a plea, right? Like if you've got the situation in New Mexico where you're trying to make an example, where you've got a pretty clear line with the statute, where you maybe don't want, if you're Alec Baldwin, to actually like litigate these stories in court. You don't want to be talking about the time the safety guy walked out saying this was an unsafe set. You don't want to talk about all these things. If you got a good enough deal, I think if you're Alec Baldwin, you say, okay, we're talking about potentially years. What is it that you're looking for in New Mexico? I mean, that's probably the mindset I would be in at that point. But I don't know. I also wouldn't have given that interview. I also wouldn't have said all this stuff out of school. So I'm not Alec Baldwin. Good luck to you, sir.
Exactly. Yep. Couldn't have said it better. So, that's what I have for that one right now. Any other thoughts on Alec Baldwin before we move on?
No, I think the lawyer is doing yeoman's work. There's another quote from him that says it's important to note that this was just a financing request and they haven't said they have the right charging materials or not. It's not wrong. He's lawyering. He's doing what he should be doing. We are at the point where it is appropriate to liquidate your Hamptons home. That's the level of likelihood we're at for at least a charge being filed. Does that lead to jail time? Like I said, I'd be starting to look at pleas. I don't know what he's doing. But yeah, I think Alec Baldwin is going to be named against the state of New Mexico pretty soon. So that's the only thing I would say is sometimes people jump the gun. Daily Mail jumps the gun. Let's be honest. But I think we are right about there.
Yep. Agreed. Let me get some super chats real quick, and then we'll go on to the next subject. Hallie F, thanks so much for the super chat. Andy, the game maker, thanks for the super chat, brother. He says, Rick, he could be trying to put it in places where they can't find it. Someone clip the audio. Salacious Rick. Andy, what's wrong with you?
People like this game. It's pretty funny, actually. I was talking about Ted Lasso the other day, and people were talking about their various teams, and it was like, come on, you Reds. And then they were making me say variations of that. And it's like, it's all good. We can be innocent footballer fans here.
That's awesome. And I'm glad to see that you finished Ted Lasso and that
I did finish Ted Lasso.
Approve.
I do
it's
approve.
It's a great show.
I do approve. It has one sojourn to nowhere that I left as mystery in my tweet about it. But no, it's an excellent show.
I think I know the episode you're talking about. And I remember kind of being like, what's happening? But I don't know. I still enjoyed it enough that
let the artists really do their art from time to time, whatever.
Yeah.
Give me my puns.
Yeah. give them free reign every once in a while. And then get back to the story that we absolutely love on that show. Great. It's great. It's really great. Law and Lumber. Thanks so much for another super chat. It says, how about the fact that the attorney speaking for him is his entertainment lawyer, not a criminal defense attorney?
I don't actually think I saw his bona fides, just that it was his attorney. Is he not a defender?
I didn't know that either. I mean, hey, so maybe folks can cross over from one area to another. I don't necessarily recommend it at that level.
I don't think he's done a bad job in responding to all this very bad news. So I think he is actually a crisis communicator lawyer at bare minimum. And as somebody that looks at messaging and sees people fail massively, like, oh, the client in this case, I think he's doing a good job trying to discount these things. He's got a bad hand, right? You go try to win your poker hand with the 2 and the 5 and the 7, and Godspeed to you, son. But he's doing what he should be doing. Now, I think that in general, Alec Baldwin might be coming slower to the realization that he's in real trouble than he should be, because you probably should have transitioned into high profile, very expensive criminal defense attorney at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that may be why what the Hamptons home is going to be paying for.
It's going to buy that lawyer Hamptons home.
I get, actually that home may very well end up his lawyers, his next lawyers, I should say.
Just skip the step. Mortgage rates are too high. Just skip the step. I said we don't take things in trade. I don't know. Good enough deal. You take the Hamptons home.
Exactly. So I could also envision a situation where he's got various levels of lawyers on this. You know, he keeps his main entertainment lawyer, and then that's sort of overseeing things, and then he's got his criminal attorneys that he's got. I mean, I could also see a lot of bumping heads with that, but because lawyers generally don't like to be told how to do their work. So
if you've got a guy that you trust, like, yes, that guy's going to be involved. Like if you've worked with him for 30 years or whatever. And then sometimes that guy's great and is a good captain of industry and is working with coordinating them. Sometimes they think they know whatever area of law that they don't. And that's less great.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, we'll see what kind of criminal defense attorney he actually does end up hiring, and that represents him in court, because this is probably going to be, he's probably going to get charged. This is my guess. I think so. Totally agree with you there. Alrighty. Okay. And with that, speaking of other TV shows, we talked about the Dahmer show a little bit earlier. Yep. And the Netflix show that is getting a lot of criticism, and I've got to say, I haven't seen the whole thing yet. I've seen the first 2 episodes, so there's not going to be.
I know it's advertised as a mini series. How long is it?
It's 10 episodes. Okay. Each one's about 40 minutes, I think. Okay. And it's. I don't know if I'm going to make it to the full 10 episodes. I like true crime. I like those kind of shows. This one is very intense, and it focuses a lot on the serial killer and on his life, which I think is part of the reason why there's a lot of criticism of the show, because you've got people that are talking about how it romanticizes the murderer, and how the victims are real people. They have real families that are still around and still, sort of moving on with their lives. And a show like this comes along and it sort of opens those wounds all over again. And I have a lot of empathy for that, for these families that are, just trying to live their lives after something like that. And especially, not just the death, not just, the way in which it was that a life was taken, but then also such a public trial. And then it's like his name becomes a metaphor in some ways. I also saw other articles this week about criticism of Katy Perry, Eminem, Kesha, and others that have used the name Dahmer as a metaphor in some of their lyrics and some of their songs, talking about like I'll eat your heart out, that kind of thing. Like I'll Dahmer you or something like that. So
not a great lyric, but does the job, I guess.
Yeah. And I'm paraphrasing a bit, because I can't remember the exact lyrics from each of those, but people are talking about people are kind of like going back and sort of like realizing, oh, that was terrible, because they're romanticizing this guy all over again by, making his name sort of this metaphor for like passion and all this kind of stuff. So all of that is sort of coming up at the same time or I guess sort of in the tailwind of this Netflix show. And man, I've got to say, like I said, I don't know if I'm going to be finishing this show, but I probably will, just because I don't like not finishing things. But
there's no quit in Alyte, even if it's a show she's not enjoying.
It's not even necessarily that I'm not enjoying it. It's just, it's a very uncomfortable watch so far. And I I felt the same way about watching Chernobyl. You know, another one that's based on history, very like graphic on like what it shows and all that kind of stuff. But
That had a
yeah,
bit of controversy in terms of the historical accuracy of that. I mean, like, you get into trouble when you talk about things that happen to real people, right? I mean,
yeah.
like, it's one of the interesting things about all this. I think Netflix is getting sued by like 4 different people about like I'm going to get this wrong, but it's like Remembering Anna, Being Anna, Missing Anna, whatever their Anna one is, where it's the con
Oh,
artist.
the Anna Delvey.
Oh, I forgot you did the voice. Yes.
Inventing Anna.
Yeah, so they do a lot of there's like 2 or 3 lawsuits about depictions in that one.
Oh, really?
It's a tricky thing, right? Because culturally, in terms of re-traumatizing, this is kind of what culture does, is it takes things that are real stories and it considers them in new ways. And in general, I think that's a good thing. And sometimes it's used specifically for entertainment. You think about like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is like the Manson killings, and reflects on those kinds of things. And that's maybe a little bit older, so maybe, you know, you get separation in time. But I know in terms of video game land, there's been a constant conversation about essentially making video games that are like World War II. And those, like, there was a Vietnam one, and like these people have real memories of this. And is it okay to essentially be making entertainment fun out of those things? And I don't know that I've seen anybody describe the Dahmer show as fun. But I think it's a conversation that I am sympathetic, but I also don't want there to be a kind of heckler's veto on culture examining the things that actually happen.
Yeah.
Does that mean that this is a good show? Is it exploitative? I'm not ever going to watch it. I don't know. But yes, you can cross certain lines with that. But I don't want there to be a place where we just say, oh, there's somebody somewhere that actually had this happen to them. We shouldn't be able to make a book or write a movie or do those kinds of things. So if I put my art snob hat on, it's like, we need to be able to do this kind of stuff. Can it be done wrong? Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think you draw a very good line on it, that, you know, we still should be able to have conversations about the things that have happened, about the headlines that have, you know, been sort of like impacted our culture, right? Because in a certain way, it impacts the way that we talk about these things. It impacts the things that we talk. I mean, you know, without these kinds of cases being made public, people might not necessarily know so much about serial killers. People might not necessarily know about like the warning signs of how someone becomes a serial killer, you know, like, but because we have, I say we generally, not everyone, but a lot of people do have a certain fascination, you know, with these kinds of cases. There's a great interest that a lot of people will end up not like using, but like that interest often drives education in a lot of ways too. You know, it's very similar to, I mean, you could even kind of expand that on to like the cases that we cover on our channels, right? Like, we're talking about controversy, we're talking about people's lives, we're talking about, you know, how these controversies are playing out a lot of times in the headlines and through pop culture and all this kind of stuff. And really it's, I guess the distinction usually should be is, you know, like, can you draw something from it? And this is what I always try to do, is like, is there something that can be learned, something that can be taught, something that can be drawn from examining this? Or is this just cheap entertainment? So
no, I think that's fair. I mean, and I think you're bringing it around to like what we do is absolutely correct, because, you know, some of the criticisms that we get from time to time is that, you know, you're just taking advantage of this horrible circumstance. Maybe that's depth you heard. Maybe that's something else that is covered on this channel or mine. And, you know, the answer that I always give is like, well, looking at it and informing is one thing. And yeah, you can do it the wrong way. And I think it's the same thing with a Netflix or whatnot. And I know people would sometimes say, well, you know, maybe you should get the families involved in those kinds of things. And it's possible. But sometimes that's going to be preventative, right? And if they don't want to be involved and they're going to not do this thing, you know, what do you do from there? And does that silence you? All of these things are, as I like to say in IP world, facts and circumstances based. But I think my best guess, and I'm not going to watch this show, is that Dahmer is successful enough that it is either exciting to people or titillating or entertaining enough that that's causing the question. Is that you watch this and you're like, oh, that they've made it more interesting. I mean, if I'm remembering correctly, it's Quicksilver is Jeffrey Dahmer, right? Like, and Quicksilver is hot. Okay, so you've cast somebody that is hot as this serial killer. That's going to present a confusing conundrum for people watching on a kind of visceral level. So I think that's part of the story. And I did see some of the controversy about, I believe Netflix originally labeled it LGBTQ because it makes sense as a label, but that got that community particularly agitated. I don't blame them for being agitated. I mean, like, you have all of these different things that are going on with this particular story. And so if I'm Netflix, cynical corporate lawyer hat on, this is great. They're talking about this show 200% more than I would have expected. And don't be surprised when, Manson comes out next, or McVeigh, or whatever they decide to do, because this is good for them. On the other side, I get it, man. If I had somebody murdered by freaking Jeffrey Dahmer, and then now, like, I don't know, journalists or emails are popping in because of freaking Netflix is making money off it, I wouldn't be a happy camper.
Yeah. I think I would definitely be feeling. I think that if I were Netflix and wanting to sort of ease the PR portion of that, I would be taking a certain portions of the earnings and like making donations to the families.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you could spend that.
Because that could be a way to say, like, hey, look, like, they are getting something, to help them, all these years later or something. I don't know, but I have no idea if they would intend to do that. But let's get some super chats real quick, and then we are going to go through the direct examination of one of the key witnesses. Okay. Haley F, pronounced Haley. Thank you so much. I just want to be welcomed to Bike Club. We've discussed the Baldwin case a lot, and it is negligence in New Mexico, especially after the interview. Love y'all and all y'all do. Yes, thank you so much for this very generous super chat. And yeah, the Baldwin case, man. I think we are probably going to be seeing something happen more coming out of New Mexico. Interlocution, thanks so much for the super chat. Says the murderer is also a real person with a real history that we need to understand in order to recognize signs of future prevention. Sorry, not pretension. Or signs, or signs someone needs psychological help. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's some other shows have done that kind of work too, that sort of goes into how they learned how to pick up on these people and how to catch them, that I think has been good. This is, like I said, I'm only 2 episodes in. We'll see how it progresses. On Borrowed Crime, thanks so much for your super chat. Says it would be nice to see someone like Alec Baldwin being held to the same standards all the rest of us would be held to.
To me, the interesting thing about that is if it's a no-name person that's practicing a play in New Mexico, doesn't have a national interview, and doesn't come across as, again, legal term of art, not my channel, a raging asshole, then I think actually you might not have criminal charges brought against you. Like, part of this is the signaling function, because I think it is so clear that Alec Baldwin didn't want to kill anybody that, depending on the prosecutor, I actually think it could go. I think Alec Baldwin's fame and demeanor is going against him pretty strong here.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah. Interlocution says it's better to put the focus on understanding the killer than to make entertainment out of the actual murders. Yeah, but drawing that line is sometimes difficult, and that line often is drawn by the beholder. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying. But I think that it's much easier said than done. Lena Palmquist, thanks so much for the super chat. Says, I love how much I learn about the U.S. legal system from you guys. While the cases are interesting and entertaining, my focus is on learning. Ah, well, awesome. Thank you. And I'm glad that you are tuning in and following along, and happy to have you here. And Jessica B became a YouTube member. Welcome to Bike Club. Happy to have you here as well. Okay, let's get
Dangerous.
here.
Little Darkwing Duck
get-
reference for all you very young people. That's what I
Love
bring
it.
to the table.
Love it. I love it. Okay. And then the rest of these super chats, there's one more here that just popped up. I will start getting those for after the direct examination here. And so here is the victim, Tracy Edwards. So this is the guy who is, if you guys have seen the show, he's in the first episode. And this is the guy who was in his apartment, and Jeffrey Dahmer tried to do all the stuff that he's done to a massive amount of other people before, and somehow he managed to escape. So here he's testifying on direct examination about like what he went through, how he met him, and all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be before I do this, I've got to turn down our mics because I remembered the audio settings are always fun. Okay. One moment. Okay. All right. Okay. So let's get into it.
Swear all the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please be seated.
Remember, this is from 1992. So,
And sir, would you tell us your name and
Tracy.
spell your last name for us?
Tracy Edwards, EDWARDS.
Mr. Edwards, you're going to ask you to speak up very loudly into the microphone. I would like to know in what state do you reside at the present time?
Louisiana,
And how old are you, sir?
32.
32, and you are single.
Yes.
You were in Milwaukee, Wisconsin on July the 22nd, 1991.
Yes.
And at or about that time, on that late afternoon, did you have occasion to see a person that you knew at that time or subsequently learned was a fellow by the name of Jeffrey Dahmer?
Yes.
And you know that Mr. Dahmer you're speaking about is a defendant in this case to my right, correct?
Yes.
And that made a record. I showed the identification.
Sir, would you indicate where Mr. Dahmer is seated in the courtroom?
It's over there.
Right in the middle between my two associates.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
The record should reflect the defendant's been identified.
Now, Mr. Edwards.
I will say just from the get-go that he definitely looks uncomfortable, which obviously being a witness, even if you are on direct and you are, you've probably been prepped by the attorney that is directing you, it's already a high pressure situation. But the moment that he gets asked, to identify where Jeffrey Dahmer is in the room, he looks incredibly tense.
Yeah, he's over there. Doesn't even look at him.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. And let me know if there's anything that you want to pop in with as we go through it.
I'm loud.
Edwards, you and I met for the first time
Sorry?
I said I'm loud. I'll let you know.
last evening,
Yes.
and you came up from Louisiana at my request with your attorney,
Right. That's
Mr.
correct.
Syed, S-Y-E-D, Salet, S-A-L-E-T.
That's correct.
And you came up here to testify to the events, as you recall them, that occurred on the late afternoon, early evening, early morning hours of July the 22nd and the morning of July the 23rd, 1991.
That's correct.
So that you know, Mr. Edwards, your name is known to the jury because there has been testimony concerning what happened to you and at the apartment of Mr. Dahmer. Do you understand?
Cool. Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
Where did you know Mr. Dahmer by name prior to that date?
I've seen him a couple of times before then. I didn't know his name personally.
All right. Did you ever talk to him before that date?
I was speaking to him, saying hello as he passed by. Yeah.
Just casual, friendly.
Casual. Yeah, friendly.
Hellos.
Hellos, yeah.
Where was it that you saw him in the late afternoon, early morning hours of July the 22nd?
Grand Avenue Mall.
And that was in Milwaukee,
Correct.
downtown on Wisconsin Avenue.
Wisconsin, correct.
Were you with somebody or were you alone?
A couple of her friends, yeah.
Okay, so the record is absolutely clear. You are not a homosexual, are you?
No, not at all.
Okay. So you were with a couple of your buddies, were you?
That's correct.
And what were you doing?
It's interesting because 1992 was such a different time than today. I feel like that would not be a question that's asked today.
Well, I mean, I think people clipping this probably saw an eyebrow raise from me. It's like, that's an interesting place for it. But I don't know what else they've presented in the case already on this particular point.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would notice is that it is a more leading form of setting the stage that you are getting from this questioner than maybe we've seen in other trials that we've looked at. That's being allowed here.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it should ease up as we go through, but and attorneys they're able to, when they are just sort of setting the stage in the beginning, of course, they're given a bit more leeway. And this judge might also be a little bit more fast and loose on those rules of evidence, maybe especially on kind of leading, especially at the beginning. So, we obviously don't have a feel for the judge in this case and how he rules on these kinds of objections. But, in the beginning, he's definitely testifying more than the witness is. And there's obviously advantages, disadvantages. You can make sure that you get you can get a certain story out to the jury, but it's always better when the witness tells the story for you.
Yeah, that's what I would say. Is it's coming across as a story that is being affirmed more than necessarily witnessed in that direction. But I agree with you at the foundational levels, like where are you? What's the hallway? That kind of stuff. I think you'd get a harsher judgment in like the actual specifics that presumably we're getting to.
Yeah. But one of the things that's very perplexing about that question about him being a homosexual is that on the Netflix show, it appears that the way in which the two of them met was in a bar that seems like it was a place where LGBTQ would gather, specifically a bar for people in that community. And the way that they were talking, it sounded like there was sort of this underlying impression that there was a romantic angle between the two of them, or at least a romantic interest between the two of them. And that's why he went home with them that night. So I just thought it was interesting when I watched this first. And then I watched the Netflix show, and I just remember being like, is this the person or the guy who gets away, or is it not? Because it was a bit different from this testimony. So
that is interesting. And as I said, Netflix has at least a legal history of people taking offenses to how things are described in their dramatizations.
Yeah. So I don't know where they got that account, if it was from him talking about it later or someone else talking about it later, but it definitely differs from this testimony for sure.
Doing?
We was drinking beer, just talking, hanging out,
About 6:00 at night, was this?
Yeah, about 6:15, whatever.
Did you have occasion then to see Mr. Dahmer?
Yeah, he approached us eventually and started talking to us. Yeah.
Were you 3 black males?
Yeah, one white, 2 black male.
Okay. So you're friends.
That was also different on the Netflix show. They were all black. I don't know. I guess it could be a distinction without a difference, but
The nature of drama, right? I mean, the thing is, I talk about these litigations. Netflix is likely to win them all. There's a certain amount of artistic right that you have in making these kinds of things.
yeah.
Yeah, my best friend was white. Yeah.
When he came up and started talking to you, what is it that Mr. Dahmer said to you?
He said he was just in the city from Chicago. He was taking care of her sick grandmother, I believe, in West Allis. Yeah.
And did he have any further conversation with you and your friends?
Yeah, he was just talking. He said he was a professional photographer. He usually pays people for pictures and stuff like that if anybody was interested in making money at that time.
To have to pose for pictures?
Yeah.
Did he describe the kind of pictures that you were going to be posing for if you chose to take him up on the offer?
He said nude.
Nude.
Right.
Now, after he said that to you, what did you and your friends do?
They were just talking, discussing it, seeing what was going on, yeah.
And what did you end up doing? Did you remain at Grand Avenue or did you go somewhere else?
We proceeded from there. He said he was going to buy all those guys beer, rum, and coke, watch videos or something like that.
Rum and coke, did you say?
Yeah, we went to the liquor store on Wisconsin Avenue, 7th and Wisconsin Avenue.
So you walked from Grand Avenue down to 7th and Wisconsin?
Yeah, up, so to speak. Yeah,
At that
between
time-
5th and 6th, 7th, something like that. I'm not
Okay.
really sure.
The general area of 6th or
Right.
7th in Wisconsin. Was it going to be the three of you and Mr. Dahmer were going to stay together, or was it agreed upon that one or others of you were going to go with Mr. Dahmer, or was there no agreement?
They were going to meet up with us eventually later on that evening.
Meet up with who?
Jeffrey at his apartment, but he gave them the wrong address at that time.
Okay, so did you, the three of you and your two friends and Mr. Dahmer, walk down to a liquor store, and what happened when you got to the liquor store?
I saw my brother. We started talking. At this time, Jeff was talking to my other friends.
So you say you saw your brother. He wasn't one of the three that you were with
No,
then?
no.
You saw him on the street?
Yeah. he approached
Okay, so
me.
you had conversation.
Right.
Okay, did anyone go into a liquor store and buy anything?
Mr. Dahmer brought liquor. Yeah.
So he went
and
into a
beer.
liquor store?
Right.
And when he came out, who was still there?
Okay. When he came out, we were all still there.
And then what happened? Tell us what happened then.
Okay. He was talking to them. Then we we're going to go up the street. I was going to go home and change and everything at this time. So we proceeded. We caught a cab at the bus station,
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what was your plan as you were in front of that liquor store after Mr. Dahmer came out with the liquor and you had been talking to your brother? What was your plan? What were you going to do? You say you were going to go home and change clothes?
Yeah, and eventually I was going to go over there, and maybe check out what he was talking about making the money at that time.
So your interest was in making some money.
Right.
Did he tell you how much you would be paid if you did pose for him?
He said $100 for.
You
for a
had
shot.
no idea, did you, that this was for any homosexual
No,
conduct?
he didn't come across like that, and he didn't even act like it at that time.
Okay.
Okay.
So now your friends are still there, and you're going to go home and you order a cab for the over at the bus depot. What happens? Tell us what happens.
Okay, and then me and Dahmer, my friends say they're going to go and change and call up the girls, and we'll meet up later on. Yeah.
Was there an address given as to where you were going?
He gave them some address that wasn't correct.
You later found that out?
Right from my friends. Yeah.
What happened then? Who else remained there when this was all transpired? Just you and Mr. Dahmer, or you, Mr. Dahmer, and others?
After it all had transpired, it was me and Mr. Dahmer in the cab, leaving.
You met up at about 5:45, 6 o'clock, 6:15. What time is it now at this time?
It's maybe 6:30 as we get to 26th in Wisconsin.
So you stopped.
I will say that so far it's been, so he's definitely opened up the questioning to be much more open-ended questioning, saying, then what happened? Then what happened? Then what happened? And I think that one of the things that I really like about this direct examination is that he's going through and saying, okay, now you were here. What time is it? You were here. What time is it? What were you thinking then? What were you going to do next? What were you intending to do? And I think that this is really good to sort of give the jury the play-by-play of what transpired that evening, and sort of giving them, but doing it in such a way that it's not, I mean, then again, we're fresh to this, right? We haven't been sitting in a trial for however many days that the
Right.
jury was when they were listening to this. But, to me, I'm watching, and I'm right there with him as he's progressing through the events that happened that night.
There's a very zippy quality to what he's doing. There's no pauses, really. As soon as he finishes his answer, he's on to the next. He's creating a timeline. And I do think that is effective. There are, as I said, there are some of them which the judges let them get away with. Like he describes it and then says, yeah. It's like, okay. But I think it's very effective. I agree with you so far. Truthfully, I'm watching this as knowing nothing about where this is even going. It seems bad. So I don't know what the specifics are of this story. The other thing I will note is, as you said at the top, he does have a lot of body language. He has a lot of discomfort with going over this night. So you do get, even with me knowing nothing, not having an opening statement or otherwise, looking at this and saying, this feels like this is going a bad direction.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Stop at 26th in Wisconsin, and what happens there?
Okay, we get out the cab then, and then he suggested he go to the store and get cigarettes before he went to his apartment.
And after he did that, did you go to his apartment?
Yeah,
What route?
through the alleys, through the back way. We
Was
entered
there,
the
any,
back.
was there any discussion as to why you were taking that route?
Said it was safer. People wouldn't bother us or whatever.
At the time that you were walking with him towards his apartment, what was your plans on doing when you got to the apartment?
Really drinking the beer, I wasn't really sure if I was going to pose or not, you know. Yep, I wasn't really sure at that point.
You at least were contemplating maybe you would.
Well, yeah, I was going to make up my mind once I got there or whatever, you know.
Were you in need of money?
Yeah, I just started working and the offer sounded good at that time.
Okay. Now, when you got to his apartment, how was he acting? Tell us about his, tell me about his demeanor. You know what I mean by that, Mr. Edwards?
Yes,
How was
I
he
understand.
acting?
Just like a normal, everyday person, you know, friendly, good conversationalist. He was talking about the military, things of that nature. Yeah.
Had you been in the military?
My father retired in the Air Force, so I've been to several different bases. I was born on an Army base in Fort Carson.
That's
And the Netflix show kind of talks about this in the first couple episodes, but it hints at Dahmer's prior naval service. He actually served in the Navy for a certain period of time before
Okay.
all of these events. So I'm assuming that they have covered that elsewhere through other witnesses.
the kind of thing you were talking to him
It's
about.
like a family thing, you know, so I know a lot about it.
Had he been drinking alcohol?
Yeah, I consumed some. He was drinking beer at the time when I first
Well,
met.
the time that you were like going to his apartment, was he intoxicated?
No.
Had he
no.
been drinking?
Yeah, I've been drinking a couple
How-
of beers.
How about you? Were you intoxicated?
No, not at all.
Had you had something to drink?
I sipped maybe a little beer of my friend's beer. That was it.
All right, now you get to the apartment. Do you go in the back way?
Yes, correct.
You went up to the apartment. Tell us what happens when you get up to the apartment. Tell us what you observed, what your senses told you.
Okay. First of all, it seemed like a normal apartment. When we got inside, he turned off burglar alarms. I asked him why. First, it was a foul odor. Okay.
Tell us about that. What kind of an
It
odor?
was just like an odor. I didn't quite know what it was. You know, he told me a sewer pipe had broke and management would take care of it. Yeah.
And did you accept that?
Yes, because I worked around at construction companies before, and when pipes bust, sewer pipes bust, they smell. You know. So I
Okay.
brought that.
So you say your first thing you did was notice the odor. He opened the door to the apartment
Yes.
and you walked in.
Yes.
He turned off something. What did he turn off?
Alarms.
Did you ask him about that?
Yeah, and he said the part of the neighborhood he was in, he was protecting his property, things like that, cameras, VCRs, TVs, things of that nature.
Did you accept that?
Yes, I did.
After getting in the apartment, can you generally describe the apartment, both the apartment that you saw then and the apartment that the other parts of the apartment you saw? Tell the jury what the apartment was like.
It was like normal, pretty decent apartment, had nice things in it. You know, it had certain boxes sitting on the front, neurotic acid boxes. I asked him about it. He said he cleaned bricks with those, you know, which you can use that type of acid to clean bricks. So I brought that also.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you just said. You asked him about some boxes,
Yeah, that were laying in the front living room floor.
and what did he tell you about those?
That he cleaned brick with the neurotic acid. Okay.
Now, was the apartment small?
So like going into, again, like just setting the scene, like we don't even know what's I mean, unless you know what happens, you know, in the history of this case, but like just watching through this witness, we don't know what is going to happen in this apartment, but it feels really ominous, right?
Yeah, it's described like it's 7. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's this attorney's doing a really great job of saying, okay, now we've gone through the neighborhood and we've gotten to the apartment. Tell me what your senses told you about this apartment. That was a very great way of putting that, by saying, not just like, tell me what you saw, but saying like all of your senses, like what did you notice here? That you know, you can tell the jury about. And that's the first thing that comes to mind, of course, is the smell.
Yeah. I can only imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, yeah. And just describing the various like items that are in the room. And yeah. So we're already getting like a very sort of almost visceral feel of what's happening that night and what is basically about to happen.
All large, medium, what, give us a size.
Kind of medium size. Yeah.
Right. Now, did you, when you went in there, you went in, as you entered, were you in the living room?
Yes.
And what was the living room? What did you see in there? The boxes you told us
The
about?
boxes is a couch. There's a fish tank there also, a black lamp. Yeah, there was a little table like on the left side.
Could you see a refrigerator?
Yeah, I could see the refrigerator on my left.
Was it close to the living room?
Yeah, maybe 8 feet from the living room.
And so it was just off the living room.
Right.
Now, did you stay in that room or did you go to another room right away?
We stayed in that room for a while.
And where did you sit, if you did?
Okay, at the end of the sofa like I am now, this is a sofa. I was at this end, and he was at this side.
Referring to the jury, I mean, the witness box, if that were a sofa, he would be at that end. That is the end where he's seated on the witness stand, which would be the part closest to the judge. Is that right?
That's correct.
And where did Mr. Dahmer, what did he do?
He sat like here, maybe a couple of feet from me.
Not
my
close
left.
to you.
Maybe 2 feet.
You in fear of anything at that time?
Not at all.
Okay, and what did the two of you do?
Okay, he said we were still talking, chatting, you know. He asked me, was I interested in doing the photography? You know, I told him I was still contemplating, so therefore he offered me a beer and a rum and Coke mixture at that point.
Now, you're fully clothed,
Yes,
okay, and you're sitting on a couch,
right.
and he talks to you about this posing, and you weren't sure you're going to do it.
Right.
How much had you been offered to do the posing?
$100.
Okay, and when he brings you the beer, he brings you rum and Coke?
Yeah, he brings the beer first, and then he brings the rum and Coke.
It's interesting because it's like he's kind of going over topics that he's already said, but it's not because of the fact that he's sort of circling back. It's like he's just reminding the jury, like $100. He wanted to pay you $100. He wanted to give you a rum and Coke. That's what he wanted to do. And I think that part of this is because based on watching the show, which I don't know if it's accurate, but I think that these details probably are, that he had it. This is kind of what he would do as a serial killer is he would offer to pay $100 or $50 or what have you for a photo to take photos of them. And then he would give them alcohol that he laced with some kind of drug that would put them out essentially.
Oh, this
So
is
this
treated
is
alcohol.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So he would prepare it himself and then bring it over to them. If the show is to be believed.
Well, I'm
but-
presuming that there would be another piece of evidence or witness that could attest to that kind of thing as well. Because I didn't have that from this story. But I did have the normal, oh, he's plying you. I mean, like that's the reason the lawyer comes back to it is like, okay, he got you in here on the premise of money, and now you're not sure about it, and he's foisting drinks on you is enough without roofies or whatever it might be. But yeah, you add that to the evidence. Yeah, it all sounds bad. And I think the lawyer is doing a good job of making it sound bad, right? That's his job.
Yeah. He's definitely crafting his questions in a way that he's, and it's not just the specific questions, but it's the order of them, the fact that he's sort of coming back around to this and he's doing so in a way that does not draw objections from the other side. Because so far we haven't gotten any objections from the other side. And I think that, you know, part of it is because it's really tough to object with a witness like this because he's very sympathetic. He has gone through a lot of trauma. And he's, you know, he's clearly very uncomfortable here. So, you know, you have to tread carefully because he may be he is a very sympathetic witness to the jury, and they may, you know, those objections can very easily backfire.
That's right. Yeah. He's very sympathetic. You're exactly right about that, Alyte, because my first reaction is, regardless, I know nothing about any of this, but my reaction to this demeanor and the way he's answered these questions, this guy has seen some stuff. And if you are, you know, in a criminal courtroom, that's not great for your client if you're trying to defend that. So you're going to want to avoid overly objecting to this because it looks very much like he saw things with his reactions to this.
Yes, agreed. And by the way, they're talking about $100. This is $100 in 1992. There has been a significant amount of inflation since then.
Actually, when the number came up, I almost made a joke, which is like, now this will buy you a car in the early 90s. Yeah, no, it is. It is more money, but it's still not, it's still not like a ton of money for what you say. I'd like to take nude pictures of you. That's not $100 even in the 90s isn't getting me to go with you to your apartment.
Yeah. I mean, so obviously he was definitely drawing in people that were from the more vulnerable parts of society
Yes.
too. So that's another aspect of this, and also probably one of the other sort of criticisms, or one of the reasons for criticism of the show also, is the fact that victims are kind of like, once again, sort of victimized in a certain sense, and it's they come from marginalized communities a lot of times, and so it's like, I can see the criticism. I can definitely understand it.
Oh, I get it. Netflix, multi-international, billion market cap company doing this to make money. I get that criticism. I do.
Yeah. All right, let's continue on.
How big of a glass?
Maybe that big. Yeah.
About 4 inches high?
About 4 inches. Yeah, 3.5, something like that.
Did you ever taste it?
Yeah, I took a few sips.
Was it strong, weak, medium, or just about right?
I'm not a big liquor drinker, so it didn't taste that good to me. I don't.
Didn't taste good to you. You don't know if it was strong or not.
Strong or not, no, because I'm like.
What did Mr. Dahmer do? Did he likewise have a drink?
No, I think, yeah, right, a beer, but I don't think he drank all of his drink at that time.
Did he have any rum with him?
I just noticed the beer, right?
What time are we talking about now that you're sitting on the couch and you get the beer? You got over there about what time, and how long after this?
It was about before 7, quarter to 7, something like that.
So you're sitting on the couch, he brings you a beer and rum and coke, what happens?
Okay, then we just study talking and everything,
General talk?
General talk.
What happens?
Yeah, then I was just, I don't know, getting a little agitated maybe, because of the smell and things. And then he threw my conversation off talking about the fish in the fish tank,
Okay, when you start talking about the fish in the fish tank, do you bring that up or does he?
He does.
And what do you do when he does that?
I turn to the right, like the fish tank is here. I'm turning all the way over here.
You turn to your right to look at it?
To look at the fish tank, right.
And when that happens, what happens to you?
All of a sudden, a handcuff and a knife is pulled on me. Yeah.
Handcuff is placed on your body? Where?
On my left wrist.
And you see a knife?
Yeah, the knife, yeah.
Now, at that moment, what do you do?
First, I feel fear. Then I ask him, what's going on? This is not necessary, to pull a knife on me at that
Are you
point.
afraid?
Yes.
Do you have any reason to know why he did that?
None whatsoever.
Did you have any idea at that time it was going to happen?
No.
Tell me about his demeanor at that time when you looked and realized he had a knife and you in a cuff. You were only cuffed on one wrist.
One wrist, yeah.
What was happening to the other part of the handcuff?
Okay, he had it in his hand.
He was holding it.
Holding that in the wrist, yeah.
Where was the knife? In the other hand?
The knife was like he had here. The knife was in his hand. He had it on me like this.
Let the record reflect he was holding the knife in his right hand as he showed it, holding the cuff in his left hand. Is that right? Right. And your left hand is cuffed.
Yeah, right.
Where do you have the knife? What kind of a knife was it?
It was like a military knife, a machete of some type. Yeah, he had it lowered right up under my rib cage. Like
so he had
it somewhere in the back here.
He had it pointed at your rib cage.
Yeah.
Did you feel it? Touch
yeah,
it?
he had it on me. He had it against my body.
What happened? What was going through your mind the moment that happened when you realized you had a knife at your side and a handcuff on your hand? What did you think?
I think what's going on? This guy is so nice, and all of a sudden, it's like he's pulling knives and handcuffs and all on me.
What'd you do? What'd you say to him?
I asked him what the problem was. That it's not necessary to do this.
What did he say?
He told me at that point if I wouldn't do what he said, he would kill me. Yeah.
Now, tell us about his demeanor at the time that you look at him and you say, "What's going on? You don't have to do this." What happens to Mr. Dahmer? What's he like?
It's like not the same person that we met at Grand Avenue Mall.
How does he different?
His face structure seemed different. His body structure is like it wasn't him anymore, you know? It's like it was a totally different guy there.
So he told you if you didn't do what he told you to do, he'd hurt you.
It hurt me.
What'd you do? What happened? Tell us what happened step by step as best you can remember.
And then all of a sudden he kind of calms down, you know? And then he said he has a key in the bedroom. So we proceed to the bedroom.
The key to the handcuffs.
Right.
So you believed he was going to take them off?
Yeah. At that point, I had to go along with this guy, you know? And then if I had to find out, so I walked back there with him. He kind of guides me back there, you know?
Guides you back with the cuff and the knife?
Yeah, right.
And you go into the bedroom?
Right.
What do you see in the bedroom?
A big, about 50, 60-gallon drum barrel, whatever.
Do you ever see a 50, 60 drum barrel in anybody's bedroom
No.
before?
Not at all.
Do you have any idea? Did you ask him what it was?
No. At that point, I asked no questions at that time.
Was there a bed in that room?
Yes.
I don't blame
How
him for
was
not
the bed?
asking.
Was it made, unmade? What did
It
what
was,
op-
it was unmade.
what did you see on the bed, if anything?
Something like a stain of whatever, yeah, on the bed.
What did you think it was?
At that point in time, I wasn't sure.
What did you do when you got in the bedroom?
Rick, your face right now. You are
I don't
very
know the
affected by this
details of any of
testimony.
Yeah, no, I don't know the details of any of this. It's there was one question I almost paused you on, which I thought was really good, just in terms of setting tone. And it was he pulls the knife, and the question from the counsel is, did you at that point have any idea what was going to happen? And he says no, but like just as an observer, I'm listening. It's like, oh Jesus, what does that mean? What do you mean going to where is this going?
Yeah.
So yeah, by the time you're in the messy bedroom with the stain on the bed and the giant barrel, he has done a great job, really, both the witness and the counsel. This is actually really unusual. It's set up like a movie. It's like you're listening to an audiobook, because it's like his face structure changed. You've got all this stuff that are the cues from like cinematic type stuff. Oh, he's become a monster. And then he calms down and is like, oh my, this sounds like a freaking horror movie.
Yeah.
So that's my facial reactions. I'm not great at hiding my facial reactions to this kind of stuff. It's a good laugh. So no, I have no idea where this goes. I am buoyed by the fact that this person is talking to me. And it doesn't end in like a Blair Witch found footage situation. But yeah, I don't know what you have in store for me for the next 14 minutes.
Well, we're gonna go through it. But yeah, I think that he's doing, I think that the questions again are lined up so well for teasing the jury about like what is coming. Like what horrors are going to be coming for this person in this scene.
Yeah, did you have any idea what was going to happen? It sounds like the cliffhanger before a commercial break. I mean, like it's like what?
Yeah. So if the jury wasn't listening, at that point, they probably were triggered in to be like, wait a minute, what? With that kind of an open question of like, what is going to happen? Sort of plants that in the jury to sort of alert to them to continue paying attention. It's a very, very great tool, and not one that I've seen in recent trials that I can think of.
Yeah.
As he's holding on to the cuff and the knife, what did you do?
Studied us talking, trying to be friends with him, you know.
Did you remain standing? Did you sit down?
He made me sit down at that point. We both sit on the bed.
Was it at the foot of the bed, side of the bed, head of the bed?
Maybe halfway between.
Did that room have a TV set in it?
Yes.
Was there anything going on the TV?
Yeah, the Exorcist movies was playing at that time.
There was an Exorcist movie on. Yeah. You know which one of them?
The name, I'm not sure. I think it's 3. I'm not sure which one.
So there was a movie. Did you know it to be part of television or VCR?
VCR. Normally, that's not on regular television, so I thought it was VCR.
You knew there was a movie showing.
Right.
Did you see him put it on, or was it on?
No. When we first got into the apartment, he went through the back to the back bedroom. Maybe he put it on then. I'm not sure.
Okay. And then what happened? You're both sitting on the bed?
Yes.
Are you still in handcuffs?
Yes.
Is he holding the handcuff?
Right.
Do you still have the knife?
Right.
Is it pointed at your side as you've told us before?
Right.
You trying to be cool?
Very much so.
You're not fighting with him?
No. Not
What's
at
your intention? What are you planning on doing?
all. Getting away, I was contemplating on at the point jumping out the window. Yep. I was basically talking with this person, trying to let him know I was his friend. Yeah.
As you were sitting there on the bed, when he had you by the handcuff and a knife at your side, at that time, which would have been maybe 7 o'clock,
Something like that.
what impression was made upon your mind by the conduct, action, manner, expression, and conversation that you observed of Mr. Dahmer?
His frame of mind is what you want to know, right? Okay, he acted. At times, he would go through like different changes with me, you know?
Tell us about that.
1 minute, he's like nice. Then he was telling he didn't want people to leave him or abandon him, things of this nature, you know? Yeah.
Well, what did you think about him as a person? What impression was made on your mind of this fella that you're dealing with here?
Yeah. That at times he wasn't himself, and then at times he was like a nice guy, you know? He would come and go different times, you know, throughout the whole time. Then he would like sit, being quiet at times, watching a movie, wanting me to watch the movie, you know, and just doing little chanting sounds, you know.
Did you observe him watching the movie and how he would react to the movie?
Right. He would like just start rocking back and forth when he, you know, certain parts of the movie or whatever.
You have to say, what did he say, madam?
It was like chanting at certain times and rocking back and forth, right?
Tell us about his chanting. What was that all about?
I'm not even sure, sir, but it was just like, I can't tell you the words. I couldn't understand what he was saying at that time.
Can you mimic him? How it sounded?
It was like a slow slur, like, some of that nature, some close like that, I'm not sure.
Did it keep on for a period of time?
Off and on throughout the ordeal.
And how about the movement back and forth? How was that being effectuated?
Just like back and forth, he would do it every now and then. You know?
Just as you are rocking in your
Right,
chair
like this,
and chanting.
and chanting.
Was there any parts of the movie that was going on that you saw that he said anything about?
It was like the part about the preacher that used to be a preacher that had got possessed, and that it would seem like he was like interested in that part. That part had his attention more than anything. You know?
Tell us about what you mean by that. What impressions were made upon your mind when this was going on as to had his attention? How did he appear to you?
It appeared like it was like he wanted to mimic it or be like that part, you know, being demonized or whatever in that nature.
I'm sorry, I missed you.
Yeah, like he wanted that type of movie, that part, certain parts of that part interested him, you know. It was like he changed with it at times. Then he would get more aggressive, try to get me to handcuff myself, both hands. And he's told me it made him feel more dominant at that time.
Okay, did you and he move off of the bed at any time?
Yes, he wanted me to lay flat down, stomach down on the floor at that time.
Did you at any time go to the bathroom, use the washroom prior to the time that he asked you to lay down on the floor?
No.
All right, tell us what happened how did that happen that he told you to lay down on the floor?
You know, he told me to lay down, face down, put both of my hands behind my back because he changed again at that point, like he got more aggressive at that time.
Okay, now, but tell us, did he still have the knife out?
Yes, he still had the knife with him.
And what did you do?
Okay, I kind of like laid on my sides for some reason. I guess God told me not to lay flat down or let this person handcuff me, so I didn't.
So you were trying to stop that from happening, but you got
Right.
down on the floor.
Right.
What did he do?
He kind of laid across me, put his head across my chest at that point.
And what was he doing with his head?
Pardon me?
What did it appear to you he was doing with his head? What was he trying to do?
Like he was listening to my heart, because at a point he told me he was going to eat my heart at that point.
Wow.
Nope.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, this witness is entirely believable. And
Yeah.
I'm invested in how he got out of this situation.
That'll be the last 8 minutes of this. So we're gonna find out how he actually somehow gets himself out of the situation, right? Because it's like obviously he made it out because he's here to testify.
Right.
So how does the man in this situation get himself out of it? Crazy, right? Okay.
Well, the
But
Exorcist
I
bit,
had to pause it right there because I knew that was gonna that was a moment for reaction.
uh, yeah, the Exorcist. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff you could analyze, like fixations on popular culture and that kind of thing.
The seeming like self-soothing movements, the rocking back and forth, that seems like a self-soother, and how he's just sort of like almost like chanting things to himself, like mumbling under his breath or something like that. It's very, I mean, it could either be some sort of like weird ritualistic kind of thing, or it could be a self-soothing mechanism, like that he's like gearing himself up for what he wants to do.
Yeah, well, very possibly. I mean, there's certainly mental stuff going on there, and definitely as part of that story. It is the kind of testimony where I do find myself reacting like I'm watching a movie. As he says, he asks me to go, belly first and put my hands by my head. I was like, don't do that, man. Like I'm literally like, you cannot give him both of your hands.
No.
And then it's like, and God told me not to do that. I was like, yep,
yeah,
that's probably why you're sitting here testifying.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's get through this last portion of it.
Said he was going to eat your heart?
Yes, that's correct.
Did he still have the knife?
Yeah.
Where was the knife pointed?
When I was on the floor, he had it pointed at my groin area at that time.
One knife?
He had several, and then he slid one. I managed to slide one underneath the bed. And I guess during a point of time through an ordeal, he didn't know where the knife was, so I didn't know if he felt that was a threat or not.
So he still had a knife. You're on the floor. How long does he lay on top of you trying to hear your heart as you've described it?
Maybe a minute and a half.
And then what did you do then?
I knew something was about to happen, so I suggested that I go to the bathroom. I had to use the bathroom at that time.
And what did he do?
He kind of guided me to the bathroom.
So when you say he guided, you still had hold of your handcuff?
Yes.
And you went to the bathroom?
Right.
Did you urinate?
Yeah.
Were you able to utilize your own zipper, or did he touch you at all?
Touched me in no way. Didn't attempt to look. He just held me in back.
So in other words, he didn't try to look at what your penis looked like or anything?
Not at all.
So after urinating, did you think that you were going to be the victim of, did he ask to engage in any homosexual acts with you?
None whatsoever.
Okay, so now you leave the bathroom and what happens?
Okay, then we go back into the bedroom. It was like different time spans. We were talking about him losing his job. Then he would come to the person that I was first with, and then at certain points he would change. At first he was telling me about how people didn't care for him and things of this nature. And I was trying to comfort him, letting him know that I was a friend, that I wasn't going to try to run away from him or nothing like that.
You were being cool.
I guess God, you can say that, because I had no control. I don't know.
Did this continue on for a long period of time during the night?
Yes, apparently so. Time seemed to, I don't know. But I stayed in there that long, so it had to be going on throughout the whole ordeal, which it was. So it happened like that.
And all this time you're trying to hold him down?
Yeah, certain points, right.
How often would he go in and out of these moods?
Sorry, the time spans I couldn't really tell you, but he would I guess if you want to put it together in time, every 30 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that, and then he would have moods of being just silent, and I wouldn't say anything, try to provoke him or say the wrong thing. I would be silent with him.
Okay. So you just let him be alone. Was that movie on the whole time, a long time?
It was on a pretty good period of time, yeah. And when it went off, I couldn't tell you.
Did he continue to chant from time to time?
Yes, it happened several times throughout the ordeal.
Now, when he would watch the movie, did you notice when he would go into this thing that you told us where he would really become fixed on the movie screen? What was happening? How often would that happen?
throughout the movie, maybe every 15 or 20 minutes, and then he would turn around and try to ask me to put both of my hands behind my back, and I wouldn't, do it. I would talk to him. I tell him, you can trust me, you don't have to do this, and that would calm him down a little bit.
He had the knife the whole time.
Right,
He's watching the movie and he becomes very interested in the movie.
right.
You don't do anything, just sit there.
Just sit there and be quiet.
And then he would start conversation with you again.
Yeah, he was like you're gonna have to do this and that, Then he told me at a point I was gonna have to kill him, or he was gonna have to kill me at one point.
Were you and he drinking during this time?
No.
So he wasn't running out, bringing you out and getting beers and coming back?
No, I would have been out the window at that point.
Sure.
If he would have.
Did he, when he was fixed, I'm trying to get some words to understand, was he intoxicated?
He had been drinking, but far as being intoxicated, he was not staggering or anything of that nature.
But you know that some people, when they have too much to drink, change their moods. Was that the kind of mood changes he was having, or a different kind of mood
I
change?
think this was like more of an inner mood change than an alcoholic mood change.
What kind of mood?
It's like,
Inner mood?
a person change, not alcohol change.
What did you think about this guy? What was going through your mind as to who you were sitting next to, who was doing all these things?
A bizarre individual, someone that was very confused at this time.
Now, there came a time when you went to the washroom again.
Right, I suggested, because he had started getting aggressive a little bit again. I suggested to go to the bathroom. He let me stay in there by myself while he stayed outside the door at that time.
And what happened then?
And then I told him, I was contemplating, I was asking God, shall I make my move now? And I was going to just jump out the window. But when I got out, for some reason, I asked, could I have another beer? Yeah.
And what did he do?
And he reaches over, he guides me over and reaches in and get a beer.
He still got you on the cuff.
Yeah, and then he tells me, I told him I want to sit in the front because it's an air conditioning. And I was just going to try to jump out the window or go for the door or whatever. And because the back bedroom didn't have an air conditioner, only in the front. So I suggested we sit on the couch. I had unbuttoned my shirt to try to make him feel more at ease. And then I just sat on the couch and he just started going out of himself again. Yeah.
Going out of himself?
Yeah, he was like paying me no attention at that time.
Like he wasn't there?
Yeah, he started the chanting again, and it's like just sitting there, And then I just, for some reason, I said, well, I need to go to the bathroom again, and he didn't follow me at that point. So I reached up, I got up, and then I hit him, and I ran out.
So you hit him?
Right.
Did you have any other belongings there?
I have my bag right there at the end of the couch. I sit in exactly the same place that I sit when I went in there.
So when you got up, he let go of your cuff to let you go to the bathroom again?
He just let me stay there. I was going to go for the window. At that point, he didn't even have the cuff. It's like I wasn't even there anymore.
And when you saw that, what'd you do?
Mm-hmm. I just seized the opportunity. I said, well, at least I'm going to die trying. I'm not just going to sit here,
What'd you do, son?
I hit him and I ran towards the door, and he was right there, tried to grab me, get me back in there.
And what happened?
Then I made it outside.
So he wasn't able to bring you back in?
Bring me back in there, no.
He tried.
He tried.
And as you left that apartment, as you got away from him, I'm going to ask you again, what impressions were made on your mind by the conduct of Jeffrey Dahmer, by the actions of Jeffrey Dahmer, by the manner, expressions, and conversations of Jeffrey Dahmer that you observed? Can you give us some words?
It's like I told the policeman that this freak, this crazy guy, was trying to hurt me. Yeah.
Did you run out of the building?
Yes, I did.
Did you summon help?
Yes.
Milwaukee Police Department?
That's correct.
Did they come back there with you to the apartment?
Right.
Did you eventually go back into the apartment with the Milwaukee police officers?
Yes.
And then he was arrested.
Right.
You gave a statement to the Milwaukee police a few hours later?
Yeah. Guess you could say a few hours, yeah.
I think that's the end of it. Yep. That's going to be about the end of it. But yeah, how crazy that he was able to escape that situation.
Mr. Edwards, through your lawyer, I had you come to Wisconsin to testify.
That's correct.
Other than your expenses, you're not being paid anything,
No.
correct? Is that true?
Yeah.
That's true.
Had to go through those last details.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, good luck defense counsel on that.
Yeah. So I'll bring our mics back up again so that we can, now that we don't have to balance anymore with the,
I'm going to need
Okay.
therapy from visiting you, Alyte.
I'm so sorry.
No,
Um,
and I don't know the evidence chain. Was this person integral in actually finding Jeffrey Dahmer? Like, I don't know what the leads were to get this guy.
Yeah, so the neighbor apparently had called the police, like his next door neighbor. She had called the police so many times because of the noise coming from his apartment. She would hear fighting, and then she would hear like power tools being used afterwards. And she was calling the cops, and they wouldn't arrive, or they would show up, kind of do like a cursory view and kind of be like, oh, okay, so he says that this is his boyfriend, that tried to run out, that he brought back in, and like, okay, things are kind of weird in here. But I think that part of the reason why he was able to sort of evade arrest for a long time, at least, again, like if the Netflix show is to be believed, the way that they paint it is that he really kind of leaned into his homosexuality on it. And that in the night, I mean, we're talking about the 1990s, early 1990s, right? Like we live in a post Obergefell world, right? Where like, who cares? But like in those days, like that was, I guess, 80s, right? 80s was the AIDS epidemic, right?
Yeah, well, you have
If
all
I'm-
that stuff happening right around there. You have Magic Johnson. You have HIV stuff. You have late 80s, early 90s. Yeah.
A lot of stigma around that community. And I'm thinking, that may be one of the reasons why they asked that question of this witness early on, is that may have been like a condition that he had for testifying, is to say like, you need to make that very clear that I am not, even if he was,
Yeah, it's
because
awesome.
what a way to come out to the world, right? Is through
Certainly
your
different time,
testimony.
yeah.
Because his testimony was integral in getting him convicted. And I don't know that they even were necessarily looking for someone, for a serial killer at the time, that he ran out, went straight to cops, brought them back to the apartment, and then they found all of that. By the way, that giant drum of something in his room,
Yeah.
it was acid with remains.
Mm,
It was bad. Yeah. Just a lot of victims, a lot of horror, a lot of tragedy. But this was a great example of how a direct examination can really tell a story through asking questions and asking more questions.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's very effective. And yeah, well, I think they let him get away with a little bit of leading there on the council side. Yeah, I don't think you can object to that, especially with the demeanor and how clear they're being with what happened. And yeah, by the time you're invested in that testimony, you're watching it like a movie. Like how are you sitting here, my man?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just wild, because you think about what he did, and at least as he describes it, avoiding that second hand, like that is the absolute key, is avoiding the handcuff and working through trying to, I don't know, almost comfort. Everything he describes is putting at ease. That kind of, it's like, yeah, that's the exact right play, but that's not the play you're not reacting as if abject terror is the only thing in your mind, even though it is. And so you want to put that on God's grace. You want to put that on whatever you want. That is a very unlikely percentage of getting out of that room, I would say.
Yeah. It requires the victim to be kept extremely calm under insane circumstances.
I
right?
can't even
Like
imagine.
every instinct in your body is probably telling you, I mean, it's fight or flight, right? Every instinct in your body is saying you need to elevate, you need to escalate, you know?
Yeah, if you take that
Rather
swing
than-
early, I think you get stabbed and you die. I mean, and so it's just it's a remarkable story that I had never heard. So thank you for sharing it with me, Alyte. I'm going to be thinking about that all day. So
Well, this is early in the day. It's not, you know, you're not about to go to bed.
Right, it's a longer amount of time for me to be reflecting on it. No, you. I think it's a good pull from you, and it is very effective and showing how that direct testimony can be. But like, damn.
Yeah.
That's what I have to add. Just damn.
Yeah. Let's get some super chats here. Meg Perry, thanks so much for the super chat. Says a growing debate in the true crime community is how much more. Yeah, I see the
It's just this like little, you know, it's like the tickle up the spine. It's like, all right,
yeah.
let's do some super chats.
How much more the SK stories focus on the perpetrator rather than the victims? I think it's a worthy discussion. Yeah, I think so too. And I think that part of the fascination with these true crime stories often is how does something like this end up happening? And so you can't ask that question, or you can't answer that question without examining the perpetrator, right? So it's like you kind of have to in order to understand how that happens. But I do think that it's worth mentioning that these are individual people. These are people that had dreams, they had goals, they had lives, they had families, and that all of that is taken away. I mean, even this witness, I mean, who Tracy Edwards, who got away, lived a life. My understanding is that it was not a good one because he ended up in jail himself from other crimes and things like that. So it's like, you know, he didn't necessarily get therapy, I don't think, after something like this.
Yeah, no, that's a PTSD. That's a PTSD moment, definitely.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, you know, if a lot of drugs and alcohol followed from that, and particularly if you feel like, you know, with the stigma that's attached to the events, that's attached to, you know, the rest of the circumstances around this, you know, that sort of follows you everywhere. And if you can't get the proper treatment, the proper help to sort of manage through that, I cannot imagine being able to carry all of that well.
No, I mean, I'm having a reaction to it. I just heard a story, right? Like that is different than living that. So yeah, absolutely. Now I don't know the history of like serial killer focused media. So I don't know whether there's been a gradual shift into covering one way or the other, or the way these things are approached. And you can probably tell from my immediate questions, I'm most interested in like how society fails in those circumstances. How does that get allowed? You know, I was really interested at the top of his testimony. He describes him as just like an ordinary guy. So you do have this understanding that probably this individual was able to camouflage himself in normal, like he's not an obviously crazy person. And that's horrifying. You know, that's part of like society can't really combat somebody that can really just hide in normalcy. I think you can. I think you have to try to say, all right, how can we do this better? How can we avoid this? If the cops didn't react to those kinds of calls, what should be the triggers that they want to react to faster? Because they obviously get a lot of false calls, and you have limited resources of any kind, but you do want to catch the guy with the acid tub in his bedroom. So figuring out what that looks like, I think all of that is important. Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a fascination with somebody that is that divergent from the norm.
True.
And so that's why you get media made about it.
True. Also true. Lawn Lumber. Rob says, Hogue swear jar donation.
I think, I swear once.
Yeah. It's fine. It's fine. You're allowed on this channel.
That's right. This is why I visit other people. No.
Yeah, of course. So you can speak freely. Audibly Bell, thanks so much for becoming a YouTube member. Welcome to Bike Club. Medea 27, big heart to all victims who get up on the stand and have to relive their trauma in front of a courtroom. Yes, completely agree. That takes a mountain of courage in the face of so much trauma, and those people are true heroes for being able to testify openly in court, for sure. Jennergy says, thanks so much for streaming this, Alyte. I would not have watched it otherwise. You're welcome. You're absolutely welcome. Law and Lumber, thanks for the super chat again. Says this witness's role is critical and the questioning highlights it. He's the only survivor and the attorney needs to have him speak to the emotions that all the other victims lately felt but can't testify to. That's a really good point. It's a really good point because he's the one person that can give that sort of a very, very, very personal, visceral picture that you can't get through forensic evidence, for example. Like you can't get that. So, getting his story of how he was feeling throughout that entire encounter is helpful also on that close, intimate level so that the jury can apply that to each and every victim that they hear about. Great point.
That's props to the jurors, man. My God in heaven, if they're listening to all of it.
Yeah.
You see stories about people that have to moderate Facebook getting traumatized. I can't even, being the jury on this case I'm sure that's stayed with people for a while.
Yeah, for sure. Poppet 2 wants to know if this trial is recent. This is from 1992. So for me, I feel like 1990s feel recent, but I guess it's not.
I was going to say, somebody brings up like the release of Jurassic Park and my brain thinks it's yesterday. So what is recent to you? My kids would be like, what? Those times aren't real.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the 1990, I guess, is closer to the 60s than it is to today now. Isn't that a thing?
I've had enough horror. Yeah, no, what was I doing the other day? I was saying we're further away from Back to the Future than Back to the Future was when they went back into 55. And I was like, oh
no. Oh no.
Like, okay, all right.
That's a bad one. Lawn Lumber says, Legalbytes, I can't stop looking at Rick's face. He's so invested and can't mask the raw emotions the testimony is bringing out. Yeah.
I'm an open book on this stuff.
Yeah. But it's great. It's great because we get your actual reactions to these.
Yeah, you do.
Natalie Lawyer Chick, thanks for the super chat. She says, this is a case I've tried not to think about. It's just so scary that a person like this can exist. Yes. Yeah. It's terrifying. It's terrifying. And especially if, this is somebody who otherwise, like you said before, he's able to evade most detection methods of weirdness in society,
Yep.
Like he's not an obvious person that you would think would be a horrific murderer. But yeah, that's what makes it even scarier. And Lawn Lumber said, someone send Rick a comfort unicorn.
You have a surfeit of unicorns, Rob. You could send me a unicorn whenever you like.
There we go. So, well, on that, I've got nothing else. I should have ended with a palate cleanser. What am I doing? This is terrible.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I said I like scary movies to start this video. It's too real. But no, thank you for having me on. I think you picked a great clip. You picked a great sequence. I didn't know anything about it. And so it's interesting to at least get a little bit more color for what that was about. I'm not lying. I'm going to be thinking about that for the rest of the day. So
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. And I'm definitely not watching that Netflix show. I don't need to see that traumatized.
There you go. And that's not even any of the murder scenes.
Yep.
So, and it shows them. So, yeah. So at least there's that. So you're able to figure that horror movies, but not that one.
No, not doing that. No. I like existential dread. I don't like gore. I don't like real things happening. Give me some aliens. Give me some ghost stories, whatever. But no, absolutely not. Definitely not. Nope. Zero. I'm out.
And with that, I will be sending out some cute puppy and kitten videos on Twitter.
Follow Legalbytes on Twitter. You'll get cute animals every day at random times.
Yeah, basically, whenever the fancy strikes me, I come across something that's great. So, I guess with that, I will see you guys. Thanks so much. Okay, first off, thanks so much to Rick for hanging out with me and for going through this very dark testimony with me, going through this journey. Thanks to everybody in the chat for engaging. Thanks to everybody who has liked the video. If you haven't done so already, that would be really helpful if you could. And obviously also to the mods. Love you guys. You guys are always doing such a great job of moderating the chat, marshaling good conversation, and I'm very, very thankful for it. So anyway, with that, I will see you guys in the next video.